Welcome to Meadowbrook Memories Podcast. I am Jelly, otherwise known as Glacier Prince, and my co-host is Hitchcock, otherwise known as Alfred Henry. Our mission on this podcast series is to explore the stories behind the magic that was created at Meadowbrook. When over a span of 4 years, between 1982 and 1986, we saw the transformation of a small co-educational school with less than 1,200 students, 800 boys, 800 girls and 400 boys into a successful sports and scholastic champion, winning 7 major trophies, 3 Sunlight Cup, 2 Topping Cup, 1 Walker Cup, and 1 Nutriment Shield. And to crown these achievements, Meadowbrook also produced 2 Rhodes Scholars, Cavell Creighton in 1987 and Andrea Wright in 1989, both graduates of Meadowbrook in 1983. In this podcast series, we'll be speaking to persons, both males and female, who were actively involved in this incredible journey, along with friends and staff at Meadowbrook, which inspired the environment which created this golden era. We hope you enjoy our discussion. Please give us as much support and encouragement as you can on whatever social media platform you are listening. Welcome and thanks for joining us. Ready. Today is Thursday, October 27, 2022, and welcome back to another conversation about Meadowbrook memories. Me, as usual, Glacier, or Prince, or Lance, or Jelly, and any one of those names will do. Joining me as co-host today is, for the first time, is Wayne Swaby, a 1983 graduate of our grade school at Meadowbrook, and Wayne is primarily responsible for making this conversation we're about to have possible. Firstly, Wayne made introduction for me to get our guests, and secondly, he made sure that there will be no technical challenge in facilitating our next guest because of his age of 93. Because one of the first things our guest said to me after he graciously accepted the invitation to join the conversation, that he was 7 years from being a centurion, and the technology is going to be a challenge for him, which I understand. So when we suggested I use a more user-friendly platform to make it easier for us to have this conversation, I immediately said yes. And Wayne, I will have to thank you publicly and big you up for making sure that this conversation goes smoothly. Thank you. I can't thank you enough, Wayne.
Not a problem. It was my pleasure, sir.
Our guest today, as you already heard, is 93 years old and came to Meadowbrook in 1962 and left in 1967. Under his leadership, our young school, only 4 years old then, when he started, greatly enhanced their reputation and population and offered a full complement of school subjects necessary for first-class balanced education. He also added to the already excellent staff and qualified teachers by recruiting a new group of dedicated and qualified teachers to a growing school. Under his leadership, our school expanded its facility to build a modern library, 2 new classrooms, a netball and a tennis court, as well as acquire nearby property, which I think we now affectionately call at Meadowbrook Bottom Field, which enabled our school to start competing in Manning Cup, Sunlight Cup, Champs. But without further ado, our special guest here today is here to tell his own story, own Meadowbrook memories. So welcome to our former headmaster, Mr. Donald Bogle, or as he affectionately called himself, Sir Don. Introduce yourself, Mr. Bogle.
All right. As you've heard, my name is Don Bogle. Someone at the last school I attended called me Sir Don, and that name stuck throughout my stay at that particular school. So I'm not wedded to that thought. I'm not trying to be in any way bumptious by calling myself Sir Don. So please call me Don. And it's a pleasure for me to take part in this conversation about Meadowbrook memories. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to try and recall some of the wonderful experiences I had there, and hopefully made a difference for my 4 years, or 5 years actually, at the school. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Bogle. And I'll call you Mr. Bogle. Out of due respect, I will just introduce when you started Meadowbrook and when you
No
left.
problem. So Wayne Swaby, as was earlier introduced, I started Meadowbrook in 1978, the graduating class of 1983. I could probably say that's arguably one of the most loyal group of Meadowbrook supporters. I have to put that in there. And for me, it's certainly a great honor to participate in this conversation with someone who I think is so important to the story of Meadowbrook, right? So it's definitely humbling for me to sit here again with you, Mr. Bogle. And I remember the first time we met, you insisted I call you Don as well, and I've been doing that. So respectfully, Don.
Good.
All right, I'll follow.
Very happy.
I'll follow that you, Wayne. And thanks for the introduction. And before we start, Wayne, before I ask Mr. Swaby, before I've done the first question, is it possible you can record it, Wayne? That you have a video recording of this?
I don't believe I can do it from here. No.
I'm recording, but if you can do the video recording, you can keep it and save it for yourself.
I'll see. If it is possible, I'll do it, but I don't think I see that option.
Okay. No problem. Not a problem. Because the audience will really need more anything else. So thanks.
Yes.
So thank you, Don, for coming, and thanks, Wayne, for making this happen. I can't stop big you up for that.
Not a problem.
So Don, the first question I ask every guest who have come on this program, and I've done about 38 so far that have been published, is did you choose Meadowbrook or Meadowbrook chose you?
And if you're speaking to me,
yes,
Meadowbrook chose me. In fact, I was a teacher or second master at Monroe College, and really had not heard a word about the foundation of a new secondary school like Meadowbrook. But when I was asked to come to a meeting to consider, changing school and becoming the head of Meadowbrook, I quickly responded positively to that thought, because I thought the idea of being part of building a new school almost from scratch was too good an opportunity not to miss. Although I wondered about my ability and capability for doing a job like that.
Okay, so you did not have any principal experience before you started Meadowbrook then? That was your first job as a principal?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So what type of teacher were you at Monroe, Mr. Bogle?
Well, I taught, I was recruited to be the senior history and Latin teacher there. But I did also teach some English as well, some English classes. And I played a significant part in coaching school teams in soccer and cricket there.
Nice.
Okay, yeah, two of my favorite sports. So how long were you at Monroe?
I started Monroe when I was 27, and I was there for 6 years. That would put me at 33 when I came to Meadowbrook.
Oh, that's very young. You are right. Young age at 33. That is.
Yes, I was very young, but young and full of energy and ready to meet whatever challenges lay out there.
Mm-hmm.
But also very, very conscious of the problems and the challenge that one faced in helping to get a new school off the ground, so to speak.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you didn't even know where Meadowbrook was before at all, Don, before you came to the job? You have never visited the campus or anything at all before?
No, I did try to phone when I came into town. I tried to get whatever information I could about the school, but the first time I had an interview was the first time I saw Meadowbrook School.
Mm.
Mm.
So but what's for the record? Who you did the interview with? Who was the person who employed you for the job?
The one and only, the Reverend Henry Ward.
Okay, nice. So go ahead.
I can't say enough of that man, as I regard as one of the greatest Jamaicans of his time, and one that has gone down in the history books. He was a man that inspired you, to work and to take part in the building of a vision that he had of a school.
Yeah.
And I was only too happy because I had the same sort of values that the Reverend Ward had. So I was happy to hear what he had to say and what the type of school he wanted to build, with emphasis on religious values.
So you had known Mr. Ward before?
No, I didn't know him. I didn't know him. I didn't know a thing about him until I got there. But I did hear from others who knew him what an outstanding man he was, and I was totally impressed with him and his determination and his vision.
So he was what at the school at the time? He was principal, or he was in charge of the school board? What was his role at the school at the time?
Well, he was the chair of the school board.
He was the chair. Okay.
He was chair, yes. He didn't, actually meet for every school board meeting, because a lot of that was left to Madge Saunders.
Yeah.
But for occasions like that, I think I know that he presided, and I have to thank him for giving me the post and seeing in me the possibility that I would make a good leader.
So were you nervous when you got the job, Mr. Bogle? You were only 33. That sounds like a young age to be in charge of it was a young school and a new school. Were you nervous when you took the job?
Yes, a good question. Yes, of course, particularly as the school was blessed with having some great members of staff. And, their names, I'm sure, have gone down in history. Like Miss Peterkin, I have to mention her, a great second mistress, who was also, with this nicest of smiles, she could discipline the most difficult of kids.
Yeah.
And Miss McLennan and Miss McCourty. And then later on, his name just slips me at the moment. But
what subject you taught, Mr. Bogle? And I'll tell you.
He taught geography.
Geography. That would be not Miss Johnson.
Who?
Miss Johnson.
I think he's referring to a male.
A male. Okay. Okay. No, I don't. Yeah. But I'm familiar with those names. A couple of those names. I know Miss Peterkin taught me. Miss McLean was principal at the time when I was there for 2 years, and those two names I'm very familiar with.
Miss McLennan, Miss McCourty, and it was Mr. Lloyd Chin.
Oh, Mr. Chin, yes, I know Mr. Chin as well. Yeah, Mr. Chin.
Yes,
he went out the Titchfield after a while. Yeah, Mr. Chin was there when I went there. Yes, yeah.
So that was the nucleus of the staff. That I, when I took it over, and I did my best to add to it. And there were other good members, good teachers. I think the school benefited from the fact that it had an excellent staff.
What year was this, Mr. Bogle, for the record?
That what? What year?
What year you started?
1972.
No, 62.
1962, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, 62, yeah, okay.
62, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
I remember that because on my first few weeks there came the assassination of Kennedy in America.
Oh, in November, yes.
Yes, and I know we reacted very seriously to that. I think the whole world did at the time, but it's a memory that I have.
Yeah.
Early on in my stay there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when the first time you saw the campus at Meadowbrook and you started working, what was your vision? How did you see the Meadowbrook campus? How did it look to you in terms of where it was?
Well, of course, my first view of Meadowbrook in a way, was very disappointing in the sense that I thought the space there was limited, and the facilities were also very, very limited. And I could see it was going to be very difficult to build a school with such limited facilities. My first job, or certainly one of my jobs, was to try and build up the facilities as fast as possible to get other buildings which was needed for teaching science, for the library, more modern classrooms, and trying to get those classrooms out of the assembly hall, because it doubled both as an assembly hall as well as 3 classrooms, as well as the staff room and the headmaster's office. So I was very disappointed in the space that was available. But of course, that disappointment quickly gave way to realization that it was a beginning and that I had to get down to work and to try and improve things as quickly as possible.
So Mr. Bogle, the school right now, I don't know if you're aware, but it's I think maybe over 1,400 students now, Prince.
Yes, about that, yeah.
Right, with multiple buildings and notable academics, championship sports teams, etc. How does that align with the vision you had when you joined Meadowbrook?
Well, it fits perfectly in line. I mean, I couldn't be happier to think that the school has developed rapidly and has made a name for itself in the pantheon of secondary schools in Jamaica.
Right.
I have to say, though, that even before I left there, because of the acquisition of that playing field, we were able to produce a soccer and cricket team. Of course, we didn't win any trophies, but we gave a good account of ourselves, and we did well in other areas, which I'd be happy to talk about later on.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. So the buildings you were talking about, Don, which building? How many buildings were there at the time you started Meadowbrook in 1962?
Right. Well, there was a big, as you drove through the gate, the big auditorium on your right, which contained the facilities for assembly, and also 3 classrooms and the 2 offices of the headmasters at the front end and the staff room at the back. There was that. Then there was another block which contained, I think, the classrooms, I know, for 3rd, 4th, and 5th forms. Right. And I think altogether there could have been 4 or 5 classrooms in that building. Mm-hmm. And that was it. That was the extent of the school then. So, of course, there was the headmaster's house.
Yeah.
Well, the one that was built for the headmaster, which turned out to be a great asset, which I can tell you about more.
Okay, because that wasn't built when you started. That wasn't there when you started, headmaster's house.
Yeah, no, that was there. That was there, and of course it's a big asset to anyone working in Kingston. And certainly, one of my big regrets and a loss was when I moved from Meadowbrook to another school, which will be nameless for now.
You want to mention the colors. We know what it is.
I mean, they left me on the lurch there to find my own accommodation.
Yeah, that was like a step down, Mr. Bogle, right?
Yes. That's a terrible step down. I should get my wife to talk to you about that.
I can't bet that was the biggest complaint you got, of course.
I know.
Yeah, because that headmaster's building and house was really extremely good. It was spacious and modern, and we used it tremendously for meetings. and for raising funds, which I can talk about too.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So,
That's interesting.
yep, you had something to say, Wayne?
No, it's just I find it quite interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, coming in from Monroe and
Yeah.
having a place like that to call home while working pretty much next door.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But I'm curious to hear later on how that was used for fundraising.
I want to hear about that.
We just saw it as the residents when we were there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was used for fundraising too either. That's true, Wayne. That is, I'm interested to hear that. But let me ask you a question, Dan. So the three-store building wasn't built at the time you started Meadowbrook in 1962?
Which building?
The three-story block.
The street? No. Oh, there, yes. The one as you drove in, you passed the assembly hall building. That the one. Yes, that was there. Sure.
Okay. Because that's what I thought. That building was there. That was almost like a foundation building, a three-story building. Yeah.
Yes, that was there. All right.
Yeah,
I mean, we couldn't have done without it because it housed several form rooms, classrooms.
So about you took the job. About how many students were there when you started?
No, that I'm not sure. I think they were under 200. I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that, but I think it's somewhere around 200 students.
Still a small school. Yeah.
Very small school.
Yeah.
Well, of course, that had its advantages too.
Yeah.
You got to know a lot of the students by name. I did. And obviously, from a discipline point of view, much easier to handle too.
And what was the proportion like in terms of girls versus boys?
I think it was pretty well 50-50.
50-50, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that did. I mean, since that time, well, Wayne can attest to this. So, Meadowbrook has turned out to have more girls than boys.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the educational system.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's almost like a 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
Like
I'm curious though, Dan, when you joined Meadowbrook, obviously there was a board of directors there. And you had a mandate. I'm assuming there was a mandate. Is it the direction that you had for the school or the vision? Is that something that was mandated by the board, or was it something more general and then you had to create your own vision for the school?
It was pretty well mandated by the board. Remember, the school is a religious foundation of the Presbyterian Church, headed by a minister of the Presbyterian Church, who had high principles and really had a vision that, among other things, I mean, he was all in favor, obviously, of building academic and sporting standards, but his main consideration was that the school would produce men and women of character, who would be whose ideals would be service to Jamaica, and of course be good citizens. So,
like the Morehouse philosophy.
When you say mandated, it's true. It was mandated, but it was a vision that I shared 100%. So there was no problem there at all.
Wonderful.
So, you started Meadowbrook in 1962. What, in terms of did you visualize that the school would have become? You stayed there 5 years, right? And when you left in 5 years, what was your most significant achievement, you think, in the 5 years you left?
Well, I think that the school spirit, when I went there, when I started, the children were there, but there was no feeling of belonging to a great school. And they were there to learn, to be educated, obviously, but that was it. I think that in the 5 years that we had developed a great feeling of belonging to a good school. And the kids were proud of identifying with Meadowbrook. And of course, there were good reasons for that, because we not only participated in sports and academic results, by the way, had begun to improved tremendously in those 5 years. But we were also taking part in art on a broad basis. And of course, one of the things I founded was our participation in Interschools TV quiz. And I personally trained the students for that, and we did extremely well in that. So the name of Meadowbrook was now brought into the homes of people in Jamaica who love that program and were watching it on TV. So that's another achievement, I feel, that Meadowbrook was now very much regarded as a up-and-coming school in Jamaica.
So let me ask you a question about that, because that's very interesting that in a sense you went there and the school didn't have a sense of belonging. So how did you go about doing that? Did you consciously set out to say, how are you going, what exactly did you do to make the students feel like Meadowbrook is something, then we'll put it that way?
Yes, well, of course, there's nothing like a bully pulpit, as they call it, when you're leading prayers at the school every morning and an opportunity to speak to the kids. And that's a point that I kept drilling to the children. I shouldn't say kids. I don't like the word children. And I kept, or students would even be better, drilling home to them the fact that they had a responsibility to help build up the school, and that they needed to be proud of belonging there and to make the best use of the priceless opportunity they were getting to get a good education. So that's one important way. And of course, when the kids saw the activities that were going on around them, the building of that new block with a first-class library and an excellent netball court with tennis facilities part of it. And of course, the netball team started to do well. And my wife was there almost every day on the court helping. She, by the way, played hockey for Jamaica.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So she's a good sportswoman.
Lovely. It's in the family.
Well, like you say you coached football and cricket too, Mr. Bogle.
Yes, I did. I did help. Yes.
Okay.
Particularly cricket. I mean, cricket was my sport. Yeah.
That's my sport too. That is my sport too. But yeah.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, Mr. Bogle. That the school, in terms of the school, you develop almost like a school vibe, as they call it these days. You build a vibe to the school that didn't exist before. That must have been a challenge. Not a challenge, but you took it on well. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
I like that. So, you started in 1962. What was like? I wanted to find out in terms of like, what was the relationship like with the government of Jamaica at the time? In terms of like, did the government have anything to do with this running of the school, or it was just the church?
They didn't have a close relationship with the school at all. I mean, I didn't make every effort to get government help, for the development of the school buildings, etc. But we got nowhere with that. There was always the same story that they didn't have any money to help, and we had to rely on self-help. And of course, the self-help came, in fact, from the church and from our own efforts, which were considerable, by the way.
Yeah, let's speak to us about that, because you mentioned earlier that you had fundraising over by the principal house. Exactly. How was that organized in terms of that? Because you sound like you're an entrepreneur. You did that quite well.
Yes, well, yes, I used whatever influence I could in phoning businessmen, people I knew of, and asking, trying to get them involved in the building of the school, challenging them to help build a new school. And I've got good response there from them. In fact, the building of that tennis court was entirely done by a firm. I forget the name of it now. And we got help with the building of the block from private donations, the library block I'm talking about. And then Christine used the headmaster's house to have garden parties and fundraising activities right there. So, it was hard work and responsible work, and the PTA, they took a good part in it. I remember the treasurer was Mrs. Campbell, and she was a hard worker, and she also lent her ability to raising funds for the school. So we were always working on that. And we had fundraising days. I remember one in particular when Matalon, I made one of the Matalon brothers the chief person for the day, and of course he contributed quite a bit to the school, and so on. Yes, so I wouldn't underestimate that role of how difficult and challenging it was to raise funds to help build up the school.
Let me ask you some question about the students then now, Mr. Bogle. You started and you said about 200 students. Were any of the students particularly challenging? How did the students receive you as headmaster?
Well, one is biased, of course, in answering that.
Don't worry, I have a follow-up question to see how biased you are. Don't worry.
But no, I never really faced many serious disciplinary challenges. Not at all. Not at all. The students, they were very, very cooperative. I found the kids at Meadowbrook the easiest I had to deal with in my career. Much easier than Monroe students and later on in the other place. So, no, there were just a couple kids that gave real trouble. This is not to say that there weren't kids who weren't critical of what I did. I'm sure they were, but it never got back to me. Right. So I didn't realize, I didn't worry about that aspect of running the school. One is always going to have criticism. One can never be popular with everyone, because if you are, then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
I have to ask a question here, Jelly, before you jump in again. So when I came to Meadowbrook, Mr. Thorpe was the principal, and I remember visiting his office, and yes. I recall a box in a corner in his office that had a variety of canes in it. Right. I was on the receiving end of some of those. That had nothing to do with you, did it?
No, but maybe the question should ask Mr. Bogle, did Mr. Thorpe inherit those canes from you?
Exactly.
Look, I can't remember putting them there, if that's what you want to know. Did he say that?
No.
No, we're just wondering what the source of those canes was.
So let me ask the question directly then, Mr. Dan.
No, but very often a cane is there merely as a deterrent.
It's a deterrent.
Yes, go ahead. Sorry,
no, you say you didn't have a cane in the body at all?
No, I let Mr. Peterkin handle all the disciplinary factors. If I caned anyone, I couldn't have been more than 2 occasions in 5 years that I was there.
Oh, that's good.
If that.
Well, you should have been the principal when I was there, Carl.
Save your palms a bit, eh?
I would have loved that, Mr. Bogle. Don't worry.
I guess I have a very weak mind when it comes to remembering
yeah.
how much caning I did. It's not something that one really wants to talk about in this modern era.
No, that's true. That is true. We'll get to the trouble we'll talk about that. Because it's a different thing these days. That is true. That is true. So you spoke about Dan, that you went on you expanded the staff. Who are some of the new staff members you took on during the time you were there?
That's a good question. I don't remember their names, but we got a new Mrs. Henriquez for art. A chap named Taylor for math. We got a sports master who was very well. The first one we had was not really very good, but then I got rid of him, actually. It's the only person I fired while I was at Meadowbrook was the sports master.
Yeah.
An English chap. And then we replaced him with a new sports master who turned out very well. I can't remember his name. I'm at a loss to remember the names of the other teachers that I appointed. But, we didn't really lose many while I was there. And, so I didn't have to appoint many new teachers. And when I left, all the stalwarts of the school who helped to build the school were still there. Yeah.
So, the students stand out here, remember, in terms of like academically or sports-wise. Well, we didn't have a sports program earlier. Is there any student that stand out that you remember?
We had a girl, a young girl who was very good at running, and I don't remember her name. This is where my memory fades. It's remembering names. And we had a very good head boy whose name I can't remember either.
Oh, Kent?
I'm sorry about that, but no, I don't remember.
You don't remember? That's fine. That's okay. That's okay, Mr. Bogle. That is fine. That is fine. But let me ask another question then, though, because you said you had to acquire the bottom field as we now know it. So what did Meadowbrook do? We didn't have sports day before we acquired bottom field?
Well, of course, we made the most of the field that was there right at the school.
Yeah.
There was limited matches in both soccer and cricket that were played right in that small space. But obviously, one could never have a proper school team until we got proper facilities and proper space for it. Yeah. Yeah, and so, but we made good use of it, no question about it, until we acquired that better, that much improved space. But of course, the netball court was used a great deal, and the netball team took part in inter-school competitions and acquitted themselves really well.
Right.
Yeah. So the girls started to participate before the boys then?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. The girls will be happy to hear that they are the forerunner in terms of Meadowbrook participating. Yeah.
Since then, Meadowbrook, of course, I don't get any news of how well they're doing these days, but how has Meadowbrook developed scholastically? Can I ask that question?
Yeah, you can. Meadowbrook is in the top. The last time they did a survey, in the top 20 schools in terms of scholastically. We're falling off in terms of like on the sports arena. When I was there and Wayne was there, because I was a member of the team that won Sunlight Cup for the first time in 1982. And this is one of the reasons why I started this program. Because we won about 7 trophies during a 5-year span. We won three Sunlight Cup, a Walker Cup. We won the Walker Cup, Tapping Cup, that's a knockout competition for cricket, and the Intraman Shield. So we had 7 trophies in 4 years, Mr. Bogle.
That's incredible. That's wonderful. my
That was
goodness.
during the 80s. That's the time. That's what motivated me to start this. That's what I'm doing now in terms of Meadowbrook Memories. So that was a wonderful time. That was a wonderful time in terms of say.
Gosh, if I tell you, if I'd known that Meadowbrook won the Manning Cup, I would have been down to
No, not
fight
Manny Cup, the Walker Cup. The Walker
Walker
Cup.
the Walker Cup.
And not leaving out the most important part because we had two Rhodes Scholars in the 1980.
So that's fabulous.
Meadowbrook produced two Rhodes Scholars, Cavell Creighton and Andrea Wright. I can't call their name because I know them pretty well enough. So yeah. So
Yes.
it was the foundation he laid, Mr. Bogle, was, trust me, it
solid.
developed. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, just kind of leading off of what you're saying there, it was absolutely a very solid foundation. You did a lot of positives, a lot of students. They might not have, got to the level of Rhodes Scholars, but quite a few very well accomplished people. I'm particularly proud of our lawyers, and I know some of them are going to be listening to this, but we have quite a few of the best.
Produced quite a few lawyers as well. Yeah, that's
Definitely.
true. That's true.
Because every now and then I get an email, or I used to, from Marsha Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, and in which she tells me about the achievements of some of the students, old girls or old boys, and of course, every time I hear that, I feel really happy about it and feel that maybe in some small way I made a contribution to their success.
I'll wait and send you some of the recordings after this program that you can listen to them. You'll enjoy the memories because that's what we have been going down, memory lane. So
good.
I'm glad you're here to add to the memory because. So you taught you called Marcia's name. Did you teach her at school at the time? You remember her from school?
Who is that?
Marcia Cowan. Did you teach her?
No, I haven't met her since. Since she wasn't Wayne, she wasn't at that meeting we had. Was in Toronto.
No, she wasn't.
No, there was a teacher there. No, I've not. I've not met her personally. Personally, since those days.
So no, the question I think I asked Mr. Bogle, was she a student at the time you were there?
Yes, okay. At the end, right at the very end.
At the end, okay. I know she told me she had nine brothers and sisters who went to Meadowbrook at the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what she told me when I spoke to her. I've spoken to her too, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Did she remember me at all at school?
I don't remember asking her that, Mr. Bogle. She will hear this and she'll comment on this. I'm certain she will. But yeah, she must have. If she went to school, go ahead, Wayne. So like you want to say.
I was going to say, based on the information that Marcia would share from time to time, I would go out on a limb and say yes.
Yeah. I think so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think so too, Mr. Bogle.
Okay. Good.
So
I'm not there.
So, Mr. Bogle, you're at Meadowbrook for 5 years. Is there? Let me ask this question this way. Let me ask a question this. What was Christmas like at Meadowbrook in those days? Like when Christmas, like December coming, we're coming on to Christmas again this year now.
Yeah.
What was Christmas like at Meadowbrook in the 60s when you were there?
Well, when I was there, Christmas was very much, the actual Christmas season was very much a religious and family affair. In terms of the school, of course, we always had a special service before school broke up for the Christmas holidays. But to actually talk about what happened, the school was not involved with the actual Christmas holiday, as far as I can remember. Then.
Okay.
No.
Because school would have already been on holiday at the time when Christmas comes.
The school would have been on holiday, and I'm just trying to think whether the Reverend Ward used the auditorium for any kind of service, but I can't really remember that. It would have been at his church, Presbyterian Church. So no, it didn't play an active part in Christmas. Yeah.
So what?
I have a curiosity question. So we talk about Reverend Ward being Presbyterian. and he was such an integral part of the whole, beginnings of Meadowbrook. But then Meadowbrook is affiliated with the United Church. What's the difference there, and how did that difference come about?
The difference with what?
Sorry. The United Church being the church affiliated with Meadowbrook, but the founder is Presbyterian.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to understand, why isn't the school more aligned with Presbyterian, I guess, that base versus the United Church?
Well, it is how it was regarded by the board.
Oh, okay.
Mainly a Presbyterian foundation.
I see. Okay.
You know that Miss Saunders, she was the moving spirit really on the board and at Meadowbrook, and she definitely made it clear about her Presbyterian influence on the school.
Yeah.
No, they never really tried to influence me directly as such in anything that I did, because whenever we had a board meeting and met, they seemed to be quite pleased with the direction of the school and what they had heard about my performance and my attitude and my dealings with the students.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, did you meet the Reverend Saunders, Mr. Bogle?
Madge?
Yes, you met
her.
What was talk about her? What was she like in terms of like?
Well, she was a very businesslike, very determined, very active, very strong-willed person who had very strong views. She knew what she wanted to achieve. She was a live wire and did an enormous amount of good for the school and for her Christian work in Jamaica at large.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes. What about the other two founders? So we talk about Ward and we talk about Saunders, Rothney and Gartshore. So I know Margaret Gartshore was, I would imagine she would have been around during that time as well. I don't know much about Rothney.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, yes. One has to mention Miss Gartshore when you're talking about education and contribution, and in that field, she ran the junior school. Miss Gartshore. My two boys went there, from to the junior school. So we were fully involved in Meadowbrook. The two boys at the junior school, and my wife and I on the staff at Meadowbrook. It was a family affair all the way.
Okay.
I didn't know that. Your wife was a teacher at the school at the time, Mr. Bogle?
Sports teacher. She ran the sports program.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to mention your wife's name. I didn't know that. When you say she taught, she was at high school. I didn't know she. What's your wife's name?
Christine.
Okay.
She also was did a lot of the sports at Hampton when I was at Monroe.
And you said she represented Jamaica.
And yes, in field hockey.
And under what name was it? Before she married to you?
She was married then. She was married when she represented Jamaica. So it was under Christine Bogle.
Okay. It was she was married to you at the time when to represent. Oh, impressive. I didn't realize your wife was a member of the sports in charge of that. I didn't realize that. I'm glad that came out. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize.
Yes, she's very proud of the development of the netball team while she was there.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely is worth mentioning.
Yeah, no, definitely. I didn't realize that at all. But you mentioned something earlier, just a while ago. You said it was the junior school. So at the time, during the time you were here, Meadowbrook wasn't necessarily a government-aided school then. And how did that come about? Because you're saying like Meadowbrook, the prep, the junior school and the high school, was like one program at the time?
Yes. Well, the junior school, was not a free school, obviously. It was a preparatory school, and you had to pay to go there, like all preparatory schools in Jamaica, charged school fees. But Meadowbrook was definitely under the aegis of the government of Jamaica. But we had to abide by all the laws and the rules of the Department of Education in Jamaica. But at the same time, Meadowbrook wasn't the only religious foundation. It was a normal thing in Jamaica. Religion played a big part in the development of education and the history of Jamaica. There's so many religious schools.
Yeah.
Founded schools anyway.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. As far as you remember, but for me, I can't remember a school in Jamaica that was formed before 1960 that was not religious.
Yeah. Yes. Well,
most of the schools I remember.
Well, I suppose. I guess I'll have to mention it. Woolmerson's not a religious foundation. It was originally founded by the donations by a Jewish guy in Jamaica, and although it was under the aegis of the government of Jamaica, it didn't really have any religious connection. But that's by the way. We're not talking about that.
No, we're not talking about them at all. We leave them out of this completely. I agree with you.
Yes, completely.
Yeah. Well, let's get some clarified. So, the students at the time, Don, did they? Sorry. Did they have to pay to come to Meadowbrook? How did that work? When did government scholarship started, or what became known for us as common entrance? I think they have a different name now. When did students start coming to Meadowbrook under like government scholarship, as they call it? How did that work?
Well, there were scholarships of types of scholarships where you got a better contribution to your schooling, but it was free schooling by then. By that time, the government had brought in compulsory education in Jamaica, secondary education.
And what year that started, Mr. Bogle?
That started in just before I got there, actually. In 1961, I think, was when the free school situation was brought into effect, because it had just happened at Monroe before I left there, 1960. That's right. Yep.
So, yeah. So what? Yeah. And another significant thing, it came in the year when Jamaica got independence, 1962. What's the significance? How did that affect you and Meadowbrook at the time in terms of like, was there a big change, or the fact that Jamaica was no longer a British colony but no an independent country?
You mean the independence movement?
Yeah.
Didn't have a bad effect, and it didn't have a good. No, I can't say that. I mean, we celebrated it as one should, but I think it happened. Independence happened in August, didn't it?
Yes.
Independence Day, and the school wasn't busy at the time. Wasn't in action at the time.
School and holidays, yeah.
So. I'm sure that when we got the first day of school, that fact was celebrated. One.
Yeah.
Yes, without a doubt. But it didn't really have much impact on the school.
Yeah. So, did you teach in the class, Mr. Bogle? You said you taught history.
Oh yes, I did. I taught West Indian history, which was my specialty. I didn't do an awful lot of teaching because I didn't have time, but I taught history to the fourth and fifth forms.
Okay, wonderful. That's my favorite subject. That's the only subject I passed at A-level, West Indian history.
And of course, I loved English literature, so I did take the art English literature class, and I also, if there was a teacher absent, and I would go in and speak in general terms about education and important things, helping them to learn how to think for themselves.
Yeah.
And then you did have the sixth forms already established at Meadowbrook during that time, yes?
Not yet.
Not
It was
yet.
just about to come in.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
when I was leaving. Yeah.
Oh, so you during the time you were there, we didn't have a sixth form then.
No.
Okay. Let me ask you another question, Dan. 'Cause Monroe, as far as I remember, is an all-boys school,
Yes.
and you took the job for a co-educational school. What was that transition like for you to be in charge of both girls and boys? What was that like dealing with the students then?
Well, I'll tell you, I was really nervous about taking the job on. And that I debated with my wife, and that was the main. If there was a drawback in my mind, it would be that I was going into a situation where I had no experience whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But my wife convinced me that there was nothing to fear about that. And in fact, it probably would be that I would find the girls would be easier to deal with than the boys. And that turned out to be true.
Okay.
That's good to hear. The girls, they have to fear that again, Wayne.
I know, eh? They're sitting back going, see, I told you.
The girls were the first one in competitive sports at Meadowbrook, and they were much better behaved than the boys.
Oh, well, times change.
Yeah. The girls will be happy to hear that, yeah. So it was there, Mr. Bogle, did the school have any field trip at the time? Like the schools, like the children going out and like field trips and that sort of thing at the time?
Not an awful lot of that was done. There were a couple of field trips for athletics that I remember. Yes, but we didn't do an awful lot of that. No.
But that suggests, that we had a decent athletics program then. If we had people going out and those kind of trips for athletics,
that came afterwards, I'm sure. I was a little nervous about taking that responsibility at the stage at which the school was, and we really didn't have the kids who could compete.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because you said during your tenure, the 5-year year, Meadowbrook started playing Sunlight and Manning Cup. How was that introduction in terms of because when you went there, we weren't competing in those inter-school competition.
No, we weren't. We weren't in the major competitions. No.
So, and what year did you?
I think looking back now, I think I started in my fourth, the second to last year I was there.
Like 1966, the first time Meadowbrook would have entered Manning Cup and that sort of thing, and Sunlight Cup.
You'd have to check that. I'm not sure now whether that happened before I left or not. It was certainly the goal, but I don't think we had the facilities properly prepared to take part in that. But we did take part in inter-schools track and field, yes.
Our champs, that would have been easy.
Yes, we did take part in champs.
An individual or a couple of individuals could go and compete with that, but a team is a different thing completely. I could see that.
Exactly. Yes.
I could see that, Mr. Bogle. I could see that happening where you would be nervous. You didn't want to send Meadowbrook on the field where you know they're not quite ready.
Right. That's right. Yep. Of course, one had to face that eventually, because you have to make a start somewhere.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere.
Start somewhere, yes.
Have to. That's a given. We have to start somewhere. All right, let me ask you a couple more questions, Bogle.
Yeah.
You were there for 5 years. If you don't mind, what's the most embarrassing moment that happened to you can remember at Meadowbrook that you can look back on with a smile?
The most embarrassing moment
that you can smile about.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm trying to think of one. I'm sure I had quite a few of them, but not one. None really stands out in my mind that I was really embarrassed about. But I'm sure there was. I'm sure. I think one thing I remember was, yes, on one of our day ventures to raise funds, I had as a guest of honor the English ambassador to Jamaica, and his wife was there. And the time came for me to announce them, and I couldn't remember his wife's name. I started out on voicing it, and then I couldn't remember her name. But I remember that she was so charming about it. So it saved the day for me. That taught me a lesson. No more English ambassadors.
Yeah. It threw you off, Mr. Bogle. It threw you off.
Yes. Boy. Yes.
So, all right, let me ask the question this way then, Mr. Bogle. Any fun memories you remember at Meadowbrook? What are some of the fun memories you remember during the 5 years you were there? Give me a couple of incidents that are some fun times.
Yeah, there were quite a few of those. I mean, the day that we opened the library building was one of the best days of my life.
Mm-hmm.
We had a number of important guests there, and everything just went well, and the kids. We did it, of course, on a day where we gave them time to come into the assembly hall and to hear the building being blessed and so on. And it is one of my happiest memories, the day that the library block was opened.
What year was that, Miss Don? What year was that?
That was the second 2 years before I left.
Okay, 1965.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the kids just absolutely loved the building and made use of the library in the way that we hoped they would. And we got donations of books, very good books.
Yeah.
And it was a huge asset to the school.
Yeah. So what they did before you had the library? Now that you're saying that, I can't imagine what was the school have done. What would the students? Yeah, go ahead.
There was an area where they had, which was used near to the headmaster's office,
Okay.
where there were some bookshelves, and you had to go there. And the secretary looked after lending books. So it was a very unsatisfactory situation.
Yeah.
So.
Was there a relationship done between the school and the community? And if so, what was that like?
There was a very good relationship. Yes, I'm glad you asked that, because that was one of my aims, was that the school would be a big part of the community, that we invited as many members of the community as we could to come to the school to view the school when it was functioning, and of course we invited them to help in every way possible with the development. Like we had a lady who helped with the tuck shop,
mm-hmm.
and she did a very good job. She just lived around the corner from the school, and we had a good tuck shop. Yes. As they called it, and that was a member of the community who ran that. Nice. And there were other things as well, and they certainly played a big part in fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was one of the saddest things about leaving Meadowbrook, that I was going to lose the ties with the community, and for me,
Yeah.
it would be broken.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I wish we could build back. I don't think it is as tight as it used to be, based on how you described it.
Yes.
I guess that's a wish that a lot of us have, that we could actually have that close relationship again with the community.
Yeah.
Yep. It's so important, really, particularly with a new school. Naturally, that they would feel it was their school, and that it was a school they should help to develop and be a part of. Yes.
So, Mr. Don, did you realize at the time that you took a job that was almost, looking back now, 6 years later, almost 60? That's right. Yeah. This year will be 6 years, 1962, 2022. You took the job of a school that was 4 years old at the time, that you were making history in terms of, like, you were what principal? Who you took over from? And how many principals did Meadowbrook have before you came?
A man named, there was Whitmarsh Knight.
Mm-hmm.
You know that name?
Yes, I've heard that name. Yes.
Yes. He didn't last very long. I gather from what I heard. He came from Monroe.
Yeah.
But he was a different type of person. We were totally different people in terms of our concept of what a head should be like.
Mm-hmm.
And, although some people thought I was too serious, I wasn't certainly standoffish. I tried to talk to the students as often and as friendly and pleasantly as I could, and I wanted them to feel they could come to me and ask for my help, and so on. Whereas apparently he was very standoffish in that regard.
It's only like he employed the cane more than you, Mr. Bogle.
He probably did.
Maybe he brought the box.
I can't go to that, but he probably did. Yes. He didn't stay very long.
He didn't. Well, that's a spear the rod. He didn't spear the rod at all. That's why he used the rod.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question about what was the relationship like with the auxiliary staff, the supporting staff.
The support. We're not talking
not
about
staff,
not the academic staff.
The auxiliary staff, we call it. I think that's the name for it, right? Auxiliary. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, it was fine. I mean, fine. I didn't have any problems with anyone. I treated everybody well, very well, and so. As far as having that was concerned, no, I can't say that I had any difficulties and any arguments, quarrels, or strikes or anything like that in my time there. Generally, the atmosphere was very positive.
Mm-hmm. And when the school purchased the field, which was which we call bottom field. Did you visualize that it might have been a problem or it could be a problem? It wasn't, what I'm just saying. Were you worried then that the students would have to leave the compound and go to a different place?
Yes, I was very worried. I was very worried about that. Yeah, it was a drawback. Obviously, it wasn't a perfect situation. And then, of course, controlling who used the field, too, was also a problem. I spent many a Sunday afternoon. I could see the field from my the window of my upstairs bedroom, and I could see cows and animals mashing up the cricket pitch, much to my disgust.
Yeah.
And so I had to rush over there.
I think there was a cow problem when I joined Meadowbrook as well. It was still there.
Yeah.
Yes, it was, but it at the time, I don't know. I think Jamaica, in that regard, it's much more serious as a problem now than it was then. Am I wrong?
No, I don't know. Go ahead.
You're right. I think what you're describing there was maybe animals, people probably using the property without permission.
Yes.
In these days, they set up permanent structures on the property. So it's a lot more than
It's
just
a lot more
using it. It's
challenging. A
more
lot
like
more
taking
challenging.
it over, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's a bigger problem now.
So
There really wasn't a problem then.
yeah.
And of course, there were fellas who used the cricket pitch
Yeah,
who,
yeah, yeah.
who were not students.
Right.
I had to go over and talk to them, but they were pretty nice about it, so I didn't see any harm in
Yeah,
letting
yeah,
them.
yeah, 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 yeah. So how did the students adapt to the fact that they had to leave the school to go to the bottom field? How did they adapt to that? The students, the first time they realized that a field away from the school property, how do you think the students adapted to that?
On the whole, I think when they thought about it, their initial reaction was that this is not so good, unfortunate. But when they thought about the advantages that it was producing, they accepted it.
Yeah.
They accepted it quite well. Now, that only happened in my second to last year there at the very end, so I really can't speak about how the future students regarded it.
Well,
How do you feel about that, Wayne?
I can tell you, it was a blessing for us, Mr. Bogle. It became,
Absolutely.
yes, it was a special thing for us to go to bottom field to a sports day, to train the people who participated in sports. It was a blessing to know that you had a field separate and apart from the school. It gave you a chance to express yourself outside.
I see.
It
Yes.
was. I think it was. Probably didn't realize it was a blessing for us. It became a blessing for us at Meadowbrook at the time. It still
Yeah.
is. It still is.
Absolutely. We cherish it. And as a matter of fact, that hill, it might not have been a thought when the land was purchased for the playing field, but we absolutely love the fact that we could just be in the hills. That's cool. Something as simple as that.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear that it generally was accepted. I just assumed that it would be a great blessing and that it would work well, and it did. It did, no doubt about it. One day I would like to go back there and see how it has developed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Don. What's the best learning experience you got from Meadowbrook, the 5 years you were there? What's the best learning experience you got?
What experience did I get?
The best learning experience you got from being at Meadowbrook for 5 years.
Let's see. That's a very good question. Learning experience. I think in general, I learned a lot. I learned how to deal with not just the students, but the members of staff. I learned a lot from that. In fact, I would say that in terms of human relations, I learned more from the staff than they learned from me. Miss Peterkin and Miss McLennan and Miss McCourty were, I was a young pup compared with them, and they treated me really nicely, and in fact, it gave me a lot of advice, which I adhered to and followed, and I was very happy to have had the guidance that they gave me. So that's something that I learned, and it's an experience which I put to use later on.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. That's a follow-up question. It's like, what lesson you learned from Meadowbrook that you pass on to your friends and family?
How to deal with different types of people. Yeah, and the importance of standing up for what you believe in, but standing up in a decent manner, and tolerating other people's opinions, which is very difficult to do at times, but it's essential for success in dealing with people.
Yeah.
I did learn that.
Yeah.
I learned from listening to one of the other podcasts as well, Don, that Meadowbrook kind of established a standard that was somewhat enviable. So much so that a certain school somewhere downtown, um, they kind of look forward to, I guess, picking up some of the gems from Meadowbrook to bring into their own environment to kind of be employed there to improve themselves. So when you think about Meadowbrook and your move to that other nameless school, how do they compare? And what do you think your experience at Meadowbrook, how did that serve to help you to develop whatever programs or systems you had to do at that other school?
Well, the thing of the other school, of course, had a long history and tradition,
Right.
which obviously, to some extent, you are bound, particularly when you are dealing with a lot of very vocal old students who have their idea of how one should lead,
Right.
and what philosophy you should follow. I never had that constraint at Meadowbrook. And that was one thing I have to say, which made life more difficult going into this other school. Anyway, let's see. Ask the question again. The phone just
throw you off, yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was talking about that.
Yes, I got it. I remember now.
Okay.
Did my experience at Meadowbrook help me in dealing with the new atmosphere, the environment in which I found myself?
Correct.
I would say it did help. It did help me. I mean, you learn from experience in dealing with kids, and I did learn a lot from dealing with children at Meadowbrook. Now, there were more serious disciplinary problems at the new school.
Right.
But I think I was a lot more tolerant by the time I got there. I was more tolerant of that type of extreme behavior than I would have been had I not been at Meadowbrook. That's just one small example of how I benefited. But definitely with its relations with staff, Meadowbrook was a great help to me.
Awesome.
Let me follow up a question with that. I'm glad Wayne asked that question. What was the relationship like with other schools? I mean, the other high schools in the area at the time, and which ones were you close with in terms of, like, if you had meeting, if you had interaction with other high schools in the area?
Well, the interactions I had were in sports, because if there were any like meetings to organize camps, because of my sports background, I attended those meetings. I can't say that I wasn't treated with great respect and people were cordial. And the other thing was, when we took part in the inter-school quiz debates, I met other teachers, and they were very impressed with Meadowbrook students. Very impressed. But other than that, Meadowbrook is a little way away from the other school properties, so we didn't have too much connection, and we're not playing in all the major events at the times. So there wasn't as much as I would have liked. But I had my job to do at Meadowbrook. And believe me, that job, because the headmaster's house was on the property, it was a 24/7 job.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. It's like you'll be at home and people will be coming to look for you same way right there on the property.
Right there, yes.
Yeah.
Was there a cadet corps at the school during your time, Don? Was the cadet corps already established?
The tennis court?
The cadets.
Cadet, yes, we started the cadet corps just started. Yeah.
By the way, you say you had 2 children at the time. Did they attend Meadowbrook by any chance?
Who?
Yes, your children. Did any of your children
Boys.
attend in Meadowbrook?
No, they didn't get to the high school because by the time when I moved, they were still at prep school.
Okay, I got
So
it.
they went to the other prep school that I went to.
Yeah, the one that shall remain nameless. Yes.
Not the one that,
Yeah.
well,
Let me ask you another question. I'm done. What message would you give to existing students at Meadowbrook now, or future students or staff members? What message would you give to them?
well, I'll tell them that they should hold their heads high about the school that they belong to and are part of and have helped to build, because Meadowbrook, and this is a point that I hammered home when I was there. I said, and I kept telling the kids that you have nothing to be ashamed of or to hang your head about. Meadowbrook is a good school. You're getting a good education there here. And so be proud of your school and conduct yourself in an appropriate way whenever you're outside of the school. And I feel that the teachers today have every reason, as far as I know. Of course, I don't know the school intimately, no. But if it's anything, if it has developed the way I hear it has, then they should always be very proud of it and help in every way to develop it and to produce better citizens. That's really all I can say. It's up to the individuals involved to make
And I guess you would probably send a similar message if we asked you the same question of past students. I recognize that during your time there probably wasn't an active past students association, but if you were to give any word of wisdom to past students today, what would that sound like?
Well, it would be more or less what I just more or less said, that
Kind of figured.
that the school will never let you down. You can let down the school.
Yeah.
But you should,
absolutely.
by your actions and your conduct, you in fact can enhance the good name of the school. And I think that by and large, 99% of the kids when I was there were proud of. They eventually became proud of Meadowbrook.
Yeah. 100%.
That's most of the students who
Yep.
graduated since Mr. Bogle are proud of Meadowbrook. I mean,
That's good, really good to hear.
when you're listening, when you get a chance to some of these programs, which we'll send to you, you'll see I'm talking about. You're just so proud to be at Meadowbrook and went to Meadowbrook. It is amazing. I didn't realize that because I thought I played sport and I was proud of going to school at Meadowbrook because we achieved something. But even the students who didn't participate in sport love Meadowbrook and they love being there. So you started and built on a vision where we took the baton and took it to another level.
That's excellent. That's good news.
You laid
And I should say this before we part. When I was interviewed to go to the nameless school, one of the positive things in my record was the fact that they felt that I was doing a very good job at Meadowbrook.
Yeah.
And because I had brought the school to the attention of Kingston and Jamaica, that I was going to be able to continue doing that job at that school. So my time at Meadowbrook, I feel, was very well spent. And at times I regret that I left there when I did.
Yeah, I can hear that in your voice. I didn't want to call that a school name. It's like, because in a sense, I hear that from the first time I mentioned that, Dan. Because in a sense, we just say you put Meadowbrook on the map. You came in at a young school. They didn't have. You were like, what principal were you? Like the fourth principal after?
Third.
The third principal. You were the third principal for the school, Dan?
Yes.
So it was Miss Garture and then Mr. White, Mr. Marsh. And then
Mr.
you, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah, 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 yeah. So and you were there for the longest out of all of them up until that time for 5 years. Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah,
True.
yeah, yeah. You put Meadowbrook on the map. I'm done. That's all I
And
can say.
it's important as well, Prince. I don't
Yes,
know if I don't know if you're aware, Dan, but
I
there's still a very handsome picture of yourself hanging on the wall in the staff room at school.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, there is.
I've
Yeah.
never seen it. Oh,
You know
my
what?
goodness.
I'm gonna ask somebody who is at the school to take a picture of that picture and send it, and I'll flip it over to you.
I send it to me
Okay.
to Wayne that I
Yes,
can put it up when I start promoting
absolutely.
Dan podcast, and I will let him. But I have a couple more questions before you go, Dan, because as simple as I take it, we've been talking here for 90 minutes, and I really appreciate you taking the time out for. And
Okay.
it didn't feel like an interview. It's not an interview. As I said, it's a conversation we're having.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad. But let me
Yes.
ask you two more questions before the last question. How does it make you feel bringing up back all these Meadowbrook memories after 6 years? You talking about these memories, how does it make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel good in one respect, that at least that people think that I did a good job while I was there. But it also brings with it some regrets. You know, one always thinks that one could have done more. So there's that regret, and there's the regret too that I left before the job was complete.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's my feeling.
Yeah, I hear you. A bittersweet feeling, a good
Yes.
feeling that you left something, but you feel you could have stayed longer.
Yep.
Yeah, I hear
Definitely.
you. So did you meet Mr. Thorpe, the principal who took over from you?
Did I meet him?
Yeah.
Yes. I knew him. I had met him on another occasion at a school function, and I heard a lot about him.
Yeah.
And when it was published that he was going to be principal, I think I was one of the first to congratulate him. I was so happy. I knew that Meadowbrook was going to be in good hands.
Yes.
Yeah, that I can attest to. I mean,
Absolutely.
you passed on the baton to a very good principal, Mr. Bogle. Apart from the fact he was more in love with the cane than you, but he did pass on.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's not that he was more in love with it. He probably had more, probably because the older the school got,
Yeah.
more difficult the kids get.
Just imagine you took the job at Meadowbrook. Meadowbrook was just an infant in terms of age, at 4 years old.
Yeah.
And you took the job and you left it in 5 years. Meadowbrook, still an infant, still a child. And you left it. Critical years you took it over, Mr. Bogle. And in a sense, you ensure the growth and to where Meadowbrook is these years, the foundation that it is. And it big in Jamaica now. You did a wonderful job, Mr. Bogle, in terms of those critical years were very important where you took over the school. And I'm going to say that publicly now to you, that you understand where it was important. Someone of your temperament took the job and did a wonderful job. And I think the school itself and all the students who came during your time and after your time appreciated the fact that I think Meadowbrook is a success today because of the foundation you laid in the 5 years you were there. A critical period at the time.
Well, it's wonderful to hear that because
at the time. So yeah. Let me ask a couple more questions. Well, one is not a question.
I just would like to just add to that why it's nice of you to say that, and hopefully you mean it, and hopefully it's true. You know, I also feel that regrets, very much regrets that I ever left Jamaica. So it's nice to hear that you know one's life was not wasted. Go ahead. You were going to ask.
No. Don't you mention that? How long have you left Jamaica?
Since 1972.
Wow.
I've been away a long time.
50 years, yeah.
50 years, yes.
You haven't been back, Mr. Bogle?
Oh yes, yes, I've been back. I've been back quite at least once a year.
Okay, okay,
My brother, I have a brother who's still in Kingston.
okay,
So
okay, okay. And by the way, I didn't ask you this up front. Were you born in Jamaica?
I was born at 16 Elliston Road in Kingston, Jamaica.
Okay,
All
okay,
right,
yeah,
Eastman.
You probably wouldn't know where that slum is.
But you remember that, Mr. Bogle? Yes, yes.
That's right.
I was born in 16 Ray Street, which is on the same side of town you were. Yeah,
Yes, Ray Street.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah. I'm a
not
pure.
that far away.
No, not far away. I know the area well. I know the area well, Mr. Bogle. Yes,
Uh,
you're a true-blooded Jamaican then. Yes, yes, yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes.
Understood, understood, understood.
I
Um,
think
so let me
next
ask.
year,
Yeah, go ahead, Wayne.
I was just gonna say, next year is a very important milestone for Meadowbrook. So I think if all goes well done, we'll probably reach out to you again before the summer to see what we can do with that.
Yeah, next year is Meadowbrook,
Yeah,
65th, right, Wayne? Yeah, 65th.
65, yes.
65th.
That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Good. Good.
And this conversation will come out. It's a special conversation for me because the fact that you're as old as my parents. My parents are no longer with me. My mother would have been, oh, if she died 6 years ago. She would have been 93 this year, like yourself.
Wow.
You know, so I it,
You appreciate, I can't keep postponing doing things much longer.
no,
Whatever I'm going to do, I have to do it soon.
yeah, yeah, and that's the reason why when Wayne said he had contacted, I said, let me contact you right away and let's do it right away. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, let me ask you the second to last question, Don. It's not
Yeah.
really a question, and this goes to Wayne as well. But let me ask you first: is there any topic or any questions that you think I could have asked that I didn't ask, or anything that you want to bring up that I didn't remember to bring up at all?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I sort of brought it up myself, and that was, did my experience at Meadowbrook help me in my future career as a headmaster of another school? And what benefits did I get from being at Meadowbrook? And I would have to answer they were considerable.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So Meadowbrook laid the foundation for the rest of your life. Then that's what you're saying.
Yes. Yes. As I lead as a headmaster. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when you migrated to Canada, did you continue teaching?
Yeah. Yes. For a while, and I didn't stay in education in Canada. And that's not an area I'm proud of. So it's not that I was forced out of education. I know I chose to leave education in Canada because I just didn't I didn't like the tone of it, and I didn't like what was happening in the secondary schools. So I decided to follow a different path.
Oh, before you answer the question, Wayne,
Mhm.
expand on that because that's a good point. What's the difference in terms of education in Canada as opposed to education in Jamaica at the time or Meadowbrook? Well, Jamaica at the time. What's the difference, you think?
Are you speaking to me?
Yeah, yes, yeah, you done. What's the difference in terms of teaching in Jamaica and teaching in Canada?
Well, we're really quite considerable. I mean, the thing is, I was totally spoilt by the way that I was treated in Jamaica. Almost the reverence with which I was respected in at Meadowbrook and then at the school I went to. So it was a completely new. I can't speak as a whole about, in general terms, about education in Canada because I didn't take to it very well. And of course, I hated the climate. And I would have come back to Jamaica very willingly after the first year in Canada. And I did experience a certain amount of prejudice here. I will say that.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I didn't try to handle it.
Yeah.
Because I'm only telling this.
And is there any question or anything that, any question I didn't ask or any topic that I could have brought up that I didn't bring up?
I don't think so. I'm kind of thinking about it, and the podcast. I think it's designed to kind of talk about the experiences, the influence, impact, and inspiration. And I think we kind of touched on those main themes. So I think it's pretty much covered. What I would expect it to cover. For the purpose of the conversation.
Yeah, good. All right. Let me ask you the last question, Dan. And everybody who comes on these conversations, there's a first question to ask you. Did you choose Meadowbrook? And you said, no, Meadowbrook chose you. And then the last question I ask everybody who comes on these conversations is, what made Meadowbrook magical?
What made Meadowbrook magical? It's a new school in a new community. And I was, when you think of it, the opportunity I had was like an artist who has an empty blank canvas and has to fill that canvas with his ideas and plans and draw it in the picture that he wants. And that was the opportunity that Meadowbrook gave me, obviously with limitations that I kept within the parameters that the board of the Reverend Ward and the board of Meadowbrook wanted, which I was only too happy to do, as I believe the main focus or one of the main focuses of the school was to turn out students who were well prepared for life, who could think for themselves, and who wanted to be good citizens.
It's beautifully put, Dan, if I may say so. That's beautifully put. And I close my eyes as you mentioned the painting, use that analogy, and kind of see myself as, a stroke of your pen in that painting. So that's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm going to add this, I'm done. This is the first time I'm talking to you and listening to you. And it feels like to me that Meadowbrook was your proudest moment.
Yep.
The 5 years you spent at Meadowbrook was your proudest moment in your life.
Yes, I have to agree with that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I hear you have the memories after all these years. I have vivid memories, and I like that. I hear that. I hear the passion you have. You regretted leaving so early. You love the school. You love the staff.
Yep.
You didn't. You were a nurturer then. I think you were perfect for the time when you came to the school. I think you were the perfect person who came to the school. Just about when a child needed nurturing. I think you were there for the school in those early years. And I think Meadowbrook students will be grateful, have been grateful for that. Well, I certainly have. And
Thank you.
certainly have. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
so is there, before we leave, before I close this out, I always ask, I'm a guest, and I started you, Wayne. Is there any closing remark you have?
I'd just like to say that it's really been a pleasure to really sit here and sharing this moment. It's like you mentioned, it's a big part of our history. It's very important. And, to be a part of it and having this conversation with yourself and Dan, it's been very humbling for me. And I think, I wouldn't trade this for anything. So thanks a lot for the experience, Dan. And of course, Prince, for facilitating this.
You're welcome. And you, Dan, is there any closing remark from you? Yeah.
I couldn't have put it any better myself. I echo very much those comments that I hasten to say, and I hope he agrees, as my good friend Wayne said.
Absolutely.
And definitely, it was a very, very good time in my life, and I appreciate you, Glaister, and Wayne for making this opportunity for me possible, and helping to cheer up an old man in his old age. Thank you.
I accept that, Dan. I appreciate that, and when I saw you put your name on this thing, Sir Don, it reminded me of Sir Donald Bradman. I said, okay, I must have been I said, Don must have played some cricket.
Yes.
Yeah. And I agree. Now I'm going to close this out this way. I'm saying thank you both, Wayne Swaby and Donald Bogle, Sir Don, and him saying don't like the word Don, Sir Don, but Mr. Bogle, as I'm going to politely call you, because thank you both for spending the time, coming this evening and spending your time and sharing Meadowbrook memories. And I really, really appreciate both of you coming and spending the time and just share these memories. And these memories will go out and a lot of people hear them and cherish them and I am so happy, Mr. Bogle, that at 93 you come and not if you didn't tell us your age, nobody would have known that you were 93.
It's very, very impressive. I'm 55 and I can't remember what happened yesterday.
Right. No, you have vivid memory, Mr. Bogle. I'm very, very impressed. I mean, so I am happy, as I said, to come and that you can share your memories. And I close this whole program. God bless both of you, and God bless our great school, Meadowbrook High School.
Thank you.
And thank you both for coming. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you very much. And God bless you both too.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Good night, then. Good night, Wayne. Good night, Lester.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Don. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Meadowbrook Memories. And remember to give us all the support and encouragement you can on whatever social media platform you are listening. And special thanks to my production manager, Kyle Prince, who takes care of everything involved in getting the podcast out every week. And without him, this podcast would not be possible. It is his expertise that allows me to do what I love doing every week, having great conversations about Meadowbrook memories, and he's responsible for everything else. So again, thanks to my production manager, Kyle Prince.